Later that day, a teacher approaches Nam Jae-oh, concerned about her experience of being locked in the warehouse. He explains that the coach mentioned she hadn't shown up for a long time, and since the warehouse door was already locked, they assumed no one was inside. As she recounts what happened that night, he writes down her statements, adding that the security guard claimed a male student was also there with her. He even suggests that something secretive might have happened and offers to call a female teacher if she feels uncomfortable discussing it. However, she firmly insists that nothing happened and that she doesn't know who the male student is. The teacher tries to press for more details, but she remains adamant in her response. She remembers her mother calling to scold her for not checking in earlier. For some reason, her mom had feared that Nam Jae-oh might have run away. Worried, Jae-oh asked if she had reported it to the police, but her mother said she hadn't, reasoning that her daughter wasn't the type to disappear or cause trouble. However, she was about to report it if Jae-oh hadn't called by morning. She warned her to always notify her in advance if she would be late or staying out. Jae-oh reassures the teacher that she told her parents she fell asleep at school, so there's no issue. To help with the investigation, he asks if she suspects anyone from the people she last saw. She denies it, even though Yeo Eun-soo lingers in her mind. Before letting her go, he instructs her to visit the nurse's office to warm up, knowing she must have been cold all night. As the teacher steps out of the office, he spots Yeo Eun-soo and her friend standing right outside the door. Without much thought, he simply instructs them to head to class early before walking away. Noticing Yeo Eun-soo's nervous expression, her friend quickly pulls her aside, insisting that they need to talk somewhere private. It wouldn't be good if they ran into Nam Jae-oh now. They move to a quieter corner, where the other girl immediately starts questioning Yeo Eun-soo, asking if she really locked Nam Jae-oh inside the warehouse. Yeo Eun-soo firmly denies it, repeatedly trying to convince her friend that she had nothing to do with it. However, as their conversation continues, another female student nearby catches a few words and starts eavesdropping. After listening in for a little longer, she smirks and walks away, thrilled to have stumbled upon such an interesting piece of gossip. Now, she just has to decide who to tell first. Meanwhile, Nam Jae-oh rests in the nurse's office, but her mind refuses to settle. She has always harbored a quiet hope that her parents would worry about her, yet it always ends in disappointment. She knows they have bigger concerns, and she's long understood that she doesn't really matter to them. Before this incident, she used to envy her brother, but now, she finds comfort in the fact that her mother did seem worried. Her father's health remains the family's biggest concern, and she isn't even sure when he'll be able to work again. Lost in thought, she suddenly remembers she needs to tell the teacher not to inform her mother about the details of what happened. It wasn't such a terrible night, after all. In an instant, Nam Jae-oh drifts off and finds herself trapped in a strange dream about Cha Gyeol and his friend. When she suddenly jolts awake, confusion lingers. Why does she keep having such bizarre dreams? First, she didn't win a medal, and now she's dreaming of Cha Gyeol. But what bothers her most is the unfamiliar face in the fight. She recognizes it, at least partly, but can't figure out why. As she opens her eyes, she finds Moon Gi-sung sitting beside her. Without wasting time, they leave the nurse's office, and he immediately asks what happened. She explains, but even as she speaks, he senses there's more to the story. As they reach the door, he offers to help, but she stubbornly refuses. The moment she tries to push it open herself, she stumbles, forcing him to catch her before she hits the ground. He holds her steady for a moment, waiting for her to regain balance. When she finally tells him to let go, she sighs, admitting she's already frustrated enough and doesn't need him making things worse. Curious, he asks what's been bothering her so much. Without hesitation, she lists them out, her legs, Yeo Eun-soo, and even the simple act of opening a door. At the mention of Yeo Eun-soo, something clicks in his memory. Recalling a past encounter, he asks, what if Yeo Eun-soo actually wants to get close to you? Nam Jae-oh laughs at the absurdity of the idea. To her, it's impossible, she's hated Yeo Eun-soo from the very beginning. Besides, they're already seniors. If Eun-soo had any interest in being friendly, why would she wait until now? But what Nam Jae-oh doesn't realize is that Yeo Eun-soo is just a few steps away, sitting on the stairs, listening to every word. The weight of their conversation settles heavily on her, and as frustration builds, she carries it with her into Taekwondo training, unable to shake it off. At a playground, Cha Gyeol's friends wait impatiently for him, their gazes shifting to Woo Jin, the one Cha Gyeol had beaten up before. One of them asks about Cha Gyeol's whereabouts, but Woo Jin, still seething, snaps that it's none of his business. Before the conversation can go further, Nam Seo strides in, offering an apology for their last encounter. Woo Jin, however, isn't interested. His irritation only grows when he assumes Cha Gyeol must be trailing behind Nam Seo. But to his surprise, Seo denies any connection, claiming he doesn't even know him. One of the boys, ever the bully, raises a hand to hit him for his response, but Woo Jin stops him, his curiosity piqued. If they're not connected, then why did Nam Seo act the way he did that day? And more importantly, who is he, really? Meanwhile, Nam Jae-oh limps along, wincing at the tension in her leg. As she pushes forward, the sound of laughter reaches her ears. Following the voices, she rounds a corner and freezes. Among the group of young guys, she spots a familiar face. Her brother, Nam Seo. The moment he sees her, sweat beads on his forehead. Before she can call him out, he quickly pulls her aside, away from the others. "What are you doing here?" he demands in a hushed voice. She smacks his arm in response. "I'm on my way home to wash up. My bandage stinks after taking the cast off." "What are you doing here?" "It's class time." What follows is a typical sibling squabble, neither willing to back down. But their bickering is interrupted when Woo Jin steps into view. The moment Nam Jae-oh lays eyes on him, a chill runs down her spine. She recognizes him instantly. He's the guy Cha Gyeol was fighting in her dream. Nam Seo introduces Nam Jae-oh as his sister, though he can't help but notice the tension in her posture. She's scared. Woo Jin, on the other hand, simply stares at her, his mind flashing back to the moment he locked the storehouse door. Seo, keeping his tone casual, asks if he can take his sister to the corner for a moment. Woo Jin grants permission but adds, "Grab a drink on your way back." As they walk away, Seo studies Jaeho's unusually quiet demeanor. "Are you scared?" he asks. She doesn't answer. He sighs, deciding to change the subject. "If I'm late coming home, I'll be with those guys you just saw. Tell Mom for me." Then, without hesitation, he adds, "Also, give me some money for the drink." Just as he reaches for her pocket, she grabs his hand, stopping him. "I've seen that guy before." Seo shrugs. "Probably because we go to the same school." But then, to his surprise, she shakes her head. "No. I saw him in my dream." His brows furrow in confusion, but before he can question her further, she looks him straight in the eyes and asks, "Why is he fighting with Cha Gyeol?" Nam Jae-oh returns to the classroom, but her classmates immediately surround her, asking if she's okay. She reassures them that she's not sick, just lost in thought. Their behavior feels different today, and she doesn't understand why they keep mentioning her kindness. They soon reveal that they heard about what happened to her. As they continue talking, Yeo Eun-soo enters the room, drawing everyone's attention. Some students glare at her, while others mutter insults. One girl complains about the smell of Eun-soo's food and suggests she eat outside. Confused, Eun-soo walks to the window, opens it, and questions why the girl suddenly has an issue with her meal when she's eaten chicken breasts in the restaurant before. She points out that they all eat in the classroom, so why are they acting this way today? Before she can get an answer, Moon Gi-sung walks in and calls her outside. The other students watch as Yeo Eun-soo leaves with Moon Gi-sung, whispering among themselves, confused about why he chose to talk to her when Nam Jae-oh is right there. This only adds to Nam Jae-oh's confusion, forcing her to ask if they're referring to her and why their attitude toward Yeo Eun-soo has suddenly changed. To make things worse, one girl speaks up, questioning why Nam Jae keeps defending Yeo Eun-soo when everyone already knows about her locking Jae in the warehouse. The students explain that the entire Taekwondo club was aware of Eun-soo's jealousy, but they never expected her to go that far. Hearing this, Nam Jae is stunned. She never told Moon Gi-sung about it, so how does everyone know? Still, she remains composed and simply tells them that nothing is certain yet. Before anyone can process what's happening, Yeo Eun-soo bursts back into the classroom, yelling for her friend, Park Hyoyeon. She demands to know if Hyoyeon has been spreading their secret, furious at the betrayal. She accuses her of having the audacity to spread a false rumor, but Hyoyeon insists she didn't do anything. Another girl, clearly annoyed, dismisses Eun-soo, calling her too loud. Realizing how out of hand things have gotten, Yeo Eun-soo turns to Nam Jae, demanding to know if she's the one who spread the false rumors since her friend denies it. Overwhelmed with anger and frustration, she slams her hand on the desk and asks if the rumors aren't true after all. Nam Jae doesn't deny it outright. Instead, she says she wasn't the one who spread them, but isn't it possible they're true? She points out that Eun-soo has always wanted to hurt her whenever she had the chance, so maybe this time is no different. She keeps going, listing all the times Eun-soo has been cruel to her, until the tension boils over. Unable to hold back, Yeo Eun-soo lashes out and hits her. Without thinking, Nam Jae retaliates, slapping her back. In the next scene, both girls sit in the teacher's office, getting scolded for their unruly behavior. The teacher, noticing the bruises on Yeo Eun-soo's face, reminds them that athletes shouldn't throw punches so carelessly. He then turns to Eun-soo specifically, reprimanding her for attacking a classmate who's wearing a cast. Even though Nam Jae started the fight, he says, Eun-soo should have controlled herself, especially as the captain of the Taekwondo club. After a long pause, Nam Jae finally admits she threw the first hit. She explains that she acted out of anger and sincerely asks the teacher to still let her compete. But before he can respond, Yeo Eun-soo suddenly speaks up, claiming that she was actually the one who started the fight. Nam Jae, trying to help in her own way, keeps insisting on taking the blame, but she's completely clueless about how much she's just making things worse. Frustrated and confused, the teacher sighs and tells them both to go to the counseling room to write their statements. Once he reads them, he'll decide whether they'll face discipline or be removed from the sports club. In the counselor's office, the tension between them doesn't ease as they struggle to agree on what to write in their statements. The argument drags on, frustrating Yeo Eun-soo even more, especially since she knows she's innocent of what she's being accused of. After a brief silence, Nam Jae finally asks why Eun-soo interfered back in the teacher's office. She insists that if Eun-soo had just kept quiet, she would have taken all the blame, and only she would face disciplinary action. There was no need for both of them to suffer. But Eun-soo refuses to back down. She argues that letting Nam Jae take all the blame won't solve anything. Even if she walks away without punishment, it won't change the fact that their classmates already believe the worst about her. She can't confidently say she didn't do it when no one would believe her anyway. Their argument flares up again, but this time, Eun-soo eventually sighs in defeat. Outside the office, Moon Gi-sung waits patiently for his friend to come out. As soon as she does, he immediately apologizes, explaining that he's been too busy with the competition and other things to pay attention. What are you talking about? Nam Jae asks, confused. He sighs and apologizes again, this time for only now finding out about what Yeo Eun-soo did and everything that happened in the classroom earlier. His words seem strange to her. This isn't his problem, so why is he even apologizing? She tells him to focus on his competition instead, adding that, unlike him, she can't even compete right now, no matter how much she wants to. At least he gets to enjoy sports without all the unnecessary stress. She urges him to go back to training while she submits her statement, but just as she turns to leave, he suddenly pulls her back. Wait, I have something to say. She raises an eyebrow. Is it urgent? When he hesitates, she suggests he just call her later since he still has training. But he doesn't seem satisfied with that answer. He points out that it'll be late by the time he finishes, which catches her off guard. Since when does he care about the time? She shrugs it off and insists that he call her anyway, no matter how late it gets. With nothing else to say, she walks away, leaving him no choice but to agree. "I'll call you later at home," he finally says, watching her go. On the bus ride home, Nam Jae-oh scrolls through her chat with Moon Gi-sung, who has once again postponed their intended conversation. As she's lost in thought, someone suddenly pokes her. Startled, she turns, and to her surprise, it's Cha Gyeol. "How did you know I'd be here at this hour?" she asks, wide-eyed. He casually replies, "I waited at the bus stop around the time we last saw each other." About 4 buses passed by. She tilts her head, curious. "And what if we had missed each other?" "I wanted to see you," he answers simply. She huffs, telling him it wouldn't be this difficult if he just showed up to school every day. He defends himself by saying he stayed up all night again, as if that justifies everything. Wanting to shift the conversation, she asks if he remembers seeing her on the bus before, and why he acted like he didn't, embarrassing her. With a smirk, he admits, "Because I wanted to see you get all embarrassed." Annoyed, she playfully thumps his thigh, but just as she's about to respond, he mutters something that catches her off guard. Something bad will happen. A sudden silence fills the space between them. She inwardly wonders what he means. What bad thing is he talking about? Lost in her thoughts, she reflects on how holding hands shouldn't be such a big deal anymore, yet she's always the one who freezes whenever it happens. If she shows even the slightest hesitation, she's afraid he'll distance himself again, just like he did in the storage room. And she can't let that happen. Breaking the silence, she finally turns to him and says, "I got punished at school. Had a fight with a classmate, so now I have to clean the restroom with them for a while." He can't believe she was punished just for arguing, but when she reveals that the fight got physical, he quickly grabs her, checking for any injuries. She reassures him that she's fine and, in fact, she was the one who threw the first punch. She explains everything that happened, and he comments that the other girl sounds like a good friend, probably being considerate by not wanting her to get hurt. Still, Nam Jae-oh finds it suspicious. Yeo Eun-soo, the girl she fought, isn't the type to hold back. Then, she corrects him, she and Yeo Eun-soo aren't friends. The mention of friends reminds her of the guy from her dream. She asks if he knows someone with a big scar on his jaw. He replies that the guy isn't exactly a friend, but he knows who he is. Immediately, he asks if she's met him or if he said anything to her. She brushes it off, saying she only saw him by chance, then jokingly adds that she should become a fortune teller. When he asks what she means, she explains that she once dreamt of him fighting that guy, punching him until he bled from a cut near his eye. While Cha Gyeol wonders if it was a precognitive dream, she reveals something even stranger. At the time of the dream, she hadn't even known who the guy was. Seeing him in real life was a shock. He tries to dismiss it, saying dreams don't mean anything, but she interrupts, "There's more." She urges him to listen, explaining that she has a bad feeling about it. Worse, the guy in question seems to be getting involved with her brother, too. "Your brother?" he asks, surprised. She nods, explaining that she saw them together a few days ago and got worried. Then, unexpectedly, she asks if he knows her brother, a first-year student with blonde hair. He replies that he separated them last time because it looked like her brother had run out of luck and got stuck with them, so he pulled him out of there. Being the caring sister she is, she asks him to look out for her brother if it ever happens again. He agrees but quickly looks away. She feels relieved that it was just a misunderstanding, but something still bothers her, he won't meet her eyes. She watches as he rubs his face, looking drowsy, and remembers that he mentioned staying up really late. She keeps staring at him, lost in thought, until their eyes finally meet, leading to an unexpected kiss. His eyes widen in shock mid-kiss, and he immediately pulls back, stammering out an apology. He insists he did it in his sleep, scrambling to wipe her face as he keeps apologizing. Meanwhile, she sits there, stunned, unable to believe that her first kiss just happened with a guy who claims he wasn't even awake. He begs her not to cry and even tells her to hit him if she wants, but to his shock, she reveals that it was her first kiss. His head snaps up as he asks if she's mad at him, but deep down, there's something she's been wanting to ask him. She held it in, afraid it would make her seem inexperienced, but after their lips touched, she blurted it out without thinking. She realizes she's completely lost to her emotions as they share another kiss. The next morning, the new couple arrives at school together while the sports teams jog around the track. Cha Gyeol notes that it's only his second time seeing them run this early, proof of how unusual it is for him to be at school at this hour. But today, he made the effort just to see someone special. Nam Jae-oh, still adjusting to dating, puts up a bit of distance out of guilt. She tells him not to wait for her next time since she wakes up out of habit and isn't sure when she'll be ready. To her surprise, he readily agrees, saying today will be the last time he does it. His quick response stings a little, she didn't expect him to give up so easily. Then, he hands her his phone. He had been waiting for her to ask for his number, but she never did. So instead, he offers it himself and tells her that from now on, she should just ask him anything right away. While they're together, Moon Gi-sung suddenly approaches and asks what she's doing, but the moment he spots Cha Gyeol, he freezes in recognition. Without missing a beat, she quickly returns her now boyfriend's phone and waves him off before turning her attention back to Gi-sung. His eyes narrow in curiosity. Do they know each other? Before she can say anything, he starts to explain that Cha Gyeol is the same guy he warned her about. But she cuts him off, insisting it was a misunderstanding, her brother already vouched for Cha Gyeol. Do you really believe them? He asks skeptically. She shrugs. Well, they both said it's not true, so what else can I do but believe them? Besides, I'm tired of being treated like some stalker. Then, shifting the conversation, she tells him she needs to ask her brother something and assures him he doesn't need to worry about it anymore. Gi-sung stares at her, dazed. What's wrong with you these days? She blinks. What do you mean? You keep telling me not to worry. He replies. She doesn't see what the big deal is, but Moon Gi-sung insists that it is. What are you going to do if you get caught with a guy like Cha Gyeol and lose your recognition as a gifted athlete? From the way he's talking, she gets the feeling that he's dealing with something himself and taking it out on her for no reason. Yesterday, he even made her wait, saying he had something important to tell her, only to ignore her text completely. After hesitating, he finally admits, I wasn't in a situation to talk on the phone, then sighs and apologizes for being out of line. Nam Jae-oh tells him he can still say whatever he wanted to, but he cuts her off. It's nothing. I just acted like that because you haven't been hanging out with me lately. Let's drop it. She frowns. It's not like I'm avoiding you. You're just always too busy to hang out. Her grip tightens around her crutches, and she notices he's trying to change the subject. As they continue catching up, she leans in close and whispers, I think something's going on between me and Cha Gyeol. She watches his reaction carefully, then urges him to keep it a secret. With her injury preventing her from training, she's already walking on eggshells, dating rumors would only make things more complicated. Moon Gi-sung is stunned. She had always said she wasn't interested in things like this. She simply shrugs. Life's unpredictable. Besides, we're not really official yet. As she speaks, her phone suddenly buzzes with a message from Cha Gyeol. She twitches at the notification before letting out a small laugh. Interesting, she muses. Just as she's about to head inside, she pauses and turns back to him. If it's hard for you to tell me right away, I won't push you, she says gently. Just tell me when you're ready, I can wait. Then, as if reading his mind, she adds, and just in case you've gotten the wrong idea, I'm not telling you to stop worrying about me because I want to draw a line between us. The truth is, she never drew a line. She just didn't see the one that Moon Gi-sung had drawn. Not that it would have made a difference. Even if she had noticed, what could she have done? She was already falling, completely, hopelessly, in love with Cha Gyeol. Nam Jae-oh and Yeo Eun-soo arrive at the school restroom for their punishment, only to find the place in a disgusting state. Eun-soo tells Jae-oh to sit down, pointing out that she obviously can't clean in her condition. Besides, the teacher probably knew this would happen. But Jae-oh refuses, saying she can't just let Eun-soo do all the work alone. She even reveals that she brought a waterproof cover to protect her leg, but Eun-soo shuts her down, saying she has a conscience. As they start cleaning, Jae-oh hesitantly asks if Eun-soo really didn't lock her in the storage room. Eun-soo firmly denies it. Jae-oh then mentions that her friend, Hyo-in, also accused her, but Eun-soo simply replies that her friend doesn't believe her. She adds that even though she promised not to tell anyone, it turned out to be a lie. Because of that, their friendship is over. After a brief silence, Jae-oh finally asks why Eun-soo hates her so much. Eun-soo pauses, then quietly mutters that she doesn't actually hate her. Eun-soo steps closer and admits that she acted that way because she envied Jae-oh. She explains that she never won a match against her in middle school. At first, it made her furious, but over time, that anger turned into envy. Eventually, it became an obsession. She would search for news articles about Jae-oh, yet she could barely read them with her eyes open, overwhelmed by jealousy. Not that it helped, she still saw Jae-oh's photos because she couldn't bring herself to close the tab. The more she learned about her, the worse her inferiority complex became, yet she couldn't look away. They had faced each other multiple times in the same weight category, which made sense. After all, Eun-soo wasn't particularly remarkable, just another Taekwondo athlete who had to work hard. But what truly started to bother her was Jae-oh's sudden attitude shift, acting like she was keeping her in check. And after finally talking to her, Eun-soo realized Jae-oh was even ruder and more talented than she had thought. Why was someone like Nam Jae-oh trying so hard when, in Eun-soo's eyes, she was already perfect? Why did the coach and director give her so much advice when there was practically nothing left to teach her? Those questions haunted Eun-soo for 2 years. By their 3rd year of high school, they had become enemies. She says that if only she hadn't stopped Jae-oh on her way home that day, maybe the accident that cost her leg never would have happened. She wanted Jae-oh to lash out at her, to blame her, because she was too prideful to apologize first. She needed an excuse to say sorry. But no matter how much she wished for it, Jae-oh never blamed her. Eun-soo repeats once more that she wasn't the one who locked Jae-oh in the storage room. But she had craved her attention so badly that, in a twisted way, she was glad Jae-oh got angry at her. In the end, she confesses, she has always wanted to be like Nam Jae-oh. Later that day, Nam Jae-oh and Cha Gyeol sit together, chatting as she recounts her conversation with Yeo Eun-soo. Now that she knows Eun-soo wasn't the one who locked her in the warehouse, she can't help but wonder, was it really an accident? She admits that maybe she overreacted, making such a big deal out of it. But at the same time, she acknowledges that Eun-soo has quite a temper and has been distant from their classmates, even her best friend, ever since the incident. Cha Gyeol casually suggests that this might be the perfect chance for Jae-oh to get closer to Eun-soo. But before she can respond, he shifts the topic, asking about her leg. She tells him she's started physical therapy, and in fact, she's doing well enough that she no longer needs crutches. They fall into a brief silence, staring at each other, until Jae-oh breaks it by asking how he's been. Their conversation continues for a while, light and easy, until, out of nowhere, she suddenly turns away. He calls after her, asking her to face him, but instead, she stands up and moves away. Her reason? She needs to cool off the redness creeping up her face from blushing too much. To her surprise, he doesn't let her escape. He follows her, gently lifts her onto a seat, and calls her a worrywart. She smiles, admitting that she always has been, whether it's about him, her brother, or her parents, she can't help but worry. With a soft touch, he brushes his hand against her face and tells her that maybe it's time to let go of some of those worries. But Jae-oh, being Jae-oh, just starts listing even more things to worry about. Their conversation drifts on, warm and familiar, until, without warning, she blurts out that she likes him. What a coincidence, he feels the same way. Gyeol playfully suggests they kiss, but Cha Gyeol reminds her they already did that morning. Still, she insists. With a sigh, he finally gives in, pressing a quick peck to both of her cheeks. But before he can even process it, she tugs at his ears and pulls him in for a real kiss. Somewhere in between, he murmurs that kissing isn't enough, he wants to be even closer to her. And honestly, they do make a perfect match, don't they? Cha Gyeol is like a storm, sudden, overwhelming, completely shaking up the final years of her teens. And maybe there's something wrong with her too, considering how willingly she falls into it. His pull is like gravity, so powerful that everything else, the past, the worries, the doubts, feels small and insignificant in comparison. But in the midst of this perfect moment, Gyeol has no idea her phone is vibrating non-stop with calls from Moon Gi-sung. Meanwhile, on the other end of the city, Moon Gi-sung is drowning in crises, desperately hoping his dear friend will pick up and save him. Little does he know, she's too busy being completely wrapped up in love. The next day, Cha Gyeol wakes up to find the sun already high in the sky. He's missed school. With a groggy sigh, he steps out of his room, expecting to see his grandmother. Instead, he finds an unfamiliar man sitting at the table, casually enjoying a meal. Blinking in confusion, Cha Gyeol asks who he is and what he's doing here. The man calmly replies that he stopped by after work to get a taste of his grandmother's cooking. Their conversation is forced, filled with pauses, until the man suddenly asks, "Still going to school whenever you feel like it?" Cha Gyeol scoffs but replies that he's actually been attending every day lately. He explains that he's been having trouble sleeping, but the man smirks and asks if it's because he's too busy dating. Cha Gyeol freezes for half a second before smirking back, trying to brush it off. But the man doesn't let it go. He casually describes the girl he saw him with last time, long hair, broken leg, making it painfully obvious that he knows exactly who she is. She's someone's precious daughter, the man says, his tone suddenly serious. Don't do anything stupid. Take good care of her. Then, as if shifting topics, he asks about Cha Gyeol's friend, Woo Jin. He tells Cha Gyeol to look after him, calling Woo Jin immature and emotionally weak. You were the first to get your head on straight, he says, so help him out. But Cha Gyeol isn't having it. He reminds the man that he was the one who told him not to hang out with Woo Jin in the first place. Besides, he adds, if you care so much, why don't you watch over him yourself? You're the one who wants to be a detective. The man ignores the jab and circles back to the real reason he's here. So, your girlfriend. Cha Gyeol cuts him off, annoyed. Stop talking like you're in a relationship, he snaps. Then, almost as an afterthought, he mutters, and Nam Jae-oh isn't someone I can be with. Before leaving, the man offers some final words of advice, and, just for good measure, snatches Cha Gyeol's electronic cigarette right out of his hand. Meanwhile, at school, Nam Jae-oh makes her way to the teacher's office after being called in. Apparently, her brother, Nam Seo, has been bullied by Woo Jin and his friends, and the teacher invited her out of concern. The moment she steps into the office, she doesn't hold back. Nam Seo, she yells, demanding to know what he's been up to that's making the teacher worry about him. Her brother shrinks in his seat, pulling his hoodie over his face as if that'll make him disappear. But Jae-oh isn't having it. She strides over and yanks the hood down, only to freeze when she sees his scarred face. The teacher sighs, stepping in to explain. He's been coming to class hurt lately. I can't ignore it anymore. Jae-oh stares at her brother, her mind racing. Who could have done this to him? Before she can even think of a possibility, the teacher turns to her, expecting an answer, as if she might already know. Jae-oh exhales sharply, then leans down, locking eyes with Seo. Was it Woo Jin?